18 years ago, a young woman named Anna Liang vanished without a trace from her small home in the town of Rockport, Maine, leaving her husband and the entire community in bewilderment. Authorities suspected the husband, Mark Ellison, of being involved, as he was the last person to see her alive, but no body was found, and there was almost no clue strong enough to lead the way, causing the investigation to quickly stall. Yet, for over a decade, those working in Maine's cold case unit never gave up, still believing that the truth had never disappeared, it was just hiding somewhere among the forgotten evidence. Then one day, while reviewing old samples once deemed meaningless, they discovered a tiny, almost unbelievable detail. A detail that changed the entire case and left everyone involved stunned. Before diving deep into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you love true crime cases like this, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. March 2007, the coastal town of Rockport, Maine, was still shrouded in the chill of late winter. The narrow roads along the bay were deserted, the sea a thick gray under a haze of mist. In a two-story wooden house on the edge of town, Anna Liang, 28, a mechanical engineer at Bath Iron Works, lived with her husband Mark Ellison, a freelance technician. They had been married for 2 years, their life outwardly peaceful and private like many young families in the area. On March 11th, Anna left work later than usual. Colleagues remembered her wearing a dark red coat, saying she would stop by the supermarket before heading home. As she left the parking lot, she waved goodbye to the gate guard. That was the last time anyone saw her. That night, Rockport was hit by a cold wind blowing in from the sea, with light snow falling, covering the path leading to Anna's house in a thin layer. The next morning, she didn't show up at the company and didn't call in sick. Her cell phone had been off since midnight. By afternoon, colleagues tried contacting her via email and through acquaintances, but there was no response. As the day went on, no one at the factory or in the family knew where Anna was. Her parents in Massachusetts called Mark, asking why Anna hadn't been in touch. He said she might have gone to Boston to visit relatives, but they confirmed they hadn't seen their daughter. While friends began sharing their worries, a small group of colleagues drove to Rockport, stopping in front of the house on Old County Road. The lights in the house were on. Anna's car was still parked in the garage, with no sign of anyone inside. When they knocked and called her name, no one answered. Night fell. Snow continued to fall heavily, covering the entrance. Around early evening, Mark Ellison called the local emergency dispatch. He sounded tired and cautious, reporting that his wife had left home the previous evening and hadn't returned. On the other end, the operator asked for basic information to file an initial report. Mark slowly read out the name, age, address, description of his wife, and the last time he saw her. The call was logged into the Knox County Emergency Response System as a notable missing person case. The information was immediately forwarded to the Rockport Police Department. The night shift confirmed this was a missing adult female, absent for over 24 hours, no contact with family or colleagues, no signs of leaving the area. Lieutenant Hayes, in charge of the shift, ordered a scene check. He and Officer Brooks arrived at the Ellison couple's home around nearly 11 p.m. The road to the residential area was narrow and empty, police car headlights reflecting off the thick white snow covering the path. Their two-story house sat isolated at the bottom of a slope, with only one window still lit. The two officers rang the bell. No immediate answer. A few minutes later, Mark Ellison opened the door, looking neat but weary. He said he had already reported his wife's disappearance and was ready to cooperate. When invited to allow them inside, he nodded. Inside, the small house was neatly arranged, everything in order to the point of almost being static. In the kitchen, the dining table still had 2 porcelain cups, one with dried water stains. On the shelf, the kettle was empty, not turned on since the previous evening. The living room was clean, no broken items, no signs of a struggle. Upstairs, the master bedroom was tidy, bedding flat, windows closed. On the nightstand was Anna's cell phone, screen off, charger plugged in. Next to it were her wallet, bank cards, Idaho papers, and wedding ring. In a small wooden tray, personal items were lined up straight, as if the owner had just stepped out for a moment. Lieutenant Hayes documented the scene with a quick report. No signs of forced entry, no traces of a struggle, no missing property. The front door, back door, and all windows were locked from the inside, hinges not pried. When checking the backyard, the snow surface was intact, no footprints or tire tracks. In the garage, Anna's silver Ford Escape was parked neatly, doors locked, keys hanging on the rack by the entrance. A faint smell of gasoline lingered in the air, possibly from recent use. Police took photos, marked item positions, and noted the time. After completing the scene documentation, Hayes invited Mark to sit for preliminary questions. He said the last time he saw his wife was the previous evening, when she said she wanted to shower and go to bed. By morning, she was gone from the house. When asked why he didn't report it immediately, he replied that Anna sometimes wanted to be alone for a few days, so he didn't want to make a big deal out of it. The statement was recorded verbatim in the report, with a police note, calm demeanor, statement lacking details about the victim's behavior on the night of disappearance. Brooks asked further about the marriage. Mark said they occasionally argued over work, but nothing serious. Before leaving, Hayes did a final sweep. The wall clock showed 10:46, possibly stopped due to dead batteries. The porch light was still on, snow on the overhang even, no dents. Everything indicated no movement out of the house via front or back door since the previous night. Police sealed the back door, instructed Mark not to move any items for 24 hours for further checks. A preliminary report was sent that night to the department, detailing scene characteristics and initial victim info. Female, 28, mechanical engineer, no history of mental illness, no financial issues, no reason for voluntary departure. Around after midnight, Lieutenant Hayes completed the report and signed a proposal to escalate to the criminal investigation team. In the assessment section, he wrote, "Scene stable, no signs of break-in. However, victim's disappearance inconsistent with voluntary departure. Recommend classifying as suspicious missing. Request expanded verification of schedule and personal relationships." The report was forwarded the next morning to Rockport Police Department Command, marking the first step in investigating Anna Liang's disappearance. The next morning, after the suspicious missing report was approved, Rockport Police Department launched a large-scale search plan around the Old County residential area. The area was divided into 3 zones: 500 meters from the victim's home, the vacant land behind bordering pine forest, and the main road connecting to town. Starting at 7 a.m., 4 patrol teams and 15 local volunteers coordinated the sweep. Weather was cold, snow still thick about 15 centimeters, sun weak, visibility limited. Police set up a temporary command center in the parking lot near the victim's home, mapped the area, and assigned groups by direction. While search teams expanded, another group was sent to collect statements from nearby residents. Most neighbors said they saw nothing unusual the night Anna disappeared, but 2 provided notable information. Mrs. Louisa Trent, living across from the Ellisons, stated that around after 10 p.m., she heard a sound like something falling or a door slamming hard, lasting a few seconds, then silence. Another, Mr. Daniel Morse, living 2 houses away, said he saw car headlights flash through his window at dawn, unable to determine direction. Both statements were recorded, not specific enough, but supporting the hypothesis of unusual activity around the house from 10 p.m. to early morning. By mid-morning, the county K-9 unit was deployed. 2 police dogs were given Anna's clothing to scent. After a few laps around the backyard, they led toward a small trail into the western forest. At the forest turn, the snow cover was lightly compressed, signs of old movement, possibly formed before new snow fell that night. The search team marked the spot, began wide sweeps with thermal detectors and low-altitude drones. However, sub-zero temperatures and strong winds limited drone operation to a narrow radius. Footage showed no prominent objects or traces, only a few soil mounds under tree bases. Around early afternoon, while sweeping along the forest edge, Officer Brooks discovered a small object half buried in snow, about 250 meters from the victim's home. Brushing off the thin snow, he saw a gray glove, fine knit wool, wrist trimmed with silver thread. The evidence was placed in a preservation bag, labeled with location and recovery time. On site, Lieutenant Hayes noted, small size, fits women's hand, no tears or rips. Item may have fallen during movement. The entire area around the find was marked and photographed for records. The glove was taken back to the department, along with samples from Anna's home. The tech lab confirmed it matched the type of winter gloves she often wore, per colleague descriptions at Bath Iron Works. A photo from a company event a few weeks prior showed Anna wearing identical gloves, ash gray silver stitching at the wrist. Though just a single piece of evidence, it became the only starting point for the next search direction. By late afternoon, the sweep expanded another 500 meters into the western forest, but bad weather forced a halt. First-day results included no struggle traces around the house, no new vehicle or foot tracks, except in the forest, and the recovered glove as the only evidence potentially directly linked to the victim. In the summary, sent to Rockport Police at 6:30 p.m., Lieutenant Hayes concluded, need systematic continued search around the forest behind the victim's home, focusing on the Southwest Trail. Glove discovery confirms victim may have moved out of the residential area. Weather hindering, recommend maintaining control zone and overnight scene security. With that initial data, the search officially entered the expansion phase, focusing on the border between Old County Residential and Camden Hills Forest. The second day of the search operation saw significant expansion, covering the entire Camden Hills Forest and the Union Lake area, nearly 7 miles northwest of the victim's home. This was mixed forest terrain, with gentle slopes and shallow swamps, often thickly snow-covered in winter. Lieutenant Hayes set up a temporary command post at the reserve parking lot, coordinating with state rescue units and K-9. 14 officers and 8 local volunteers were divided into 3 groups, equipped with topographic maps, GPS devices, and handheld radios. Light snow fell throughout the morning, cold sea winds reducing visibility to about 300 meters. Groups conducted fan-pattern sweeps, centering on the glove discovery site. From there, they moved in horizontal lines, deeper into the forest. The K-9 team used Anna's clothing scent as reference. The 2 dogs led north to an area with many white pines. However, they stopped multiple times, sniffing around tree bases then changing direction, unable to confirm continuous traces. On-site report noted, dogs reacted strongly in area 500, 700 meters from evidence point, but no specific scent sample found. Wind and snow conditions may have interfered. Search teams spent the full day sweeping the lower forest near the edge, but yielded no additional evidence. That afternoon, the sweep expanded along old trails toward Union Lake. The area was rarely traveled, narrow path, flanked by reed beds and rocky slopes. Low-altitude drones were deployed for full route imaging, but strong winds drained batteries quickly, yielding limited data. Still, in the recorded map, techs marked an area with unusually sunken snow at the lake edge, possibly a vehicle stop. Snow samples were taken for chemical or oil checks, but initial results negative. While field searches continued, the department investigation team reviewed security camera systems around the residential area. Rockport lacked dense public cameras, but at a gas station on Route 90, over 2 miles from the Ellisons, there was overnight recording. Extracted data showed at about 5:12 a.m. on March 12, the early morning after Anna's disappearance, a silver Ford Escape moving out of town past the station. License plate unclear due to low light, but shape and front bumper matched the Ellison family vehicle. The video was saved and cross-checked with Mark's vehicle for verification. Police also checked other cameras along the route to Union Lake, but poor light and snow made images unclear. Some nearby residents confirmed no vehicle parked. In the combined report, Hayes wrote, "Husband's statement mismatches camera data and actual travel time. Search targets need expansion to Forest and Union Lake Shore areas. The following day, the search continued with air rescue support. A light state Maine reconnaissance plane was deployed for low-altitude photos of the entire Camden Hills region, aiding terrain analysis. Images showed dense pine forest, interspersed with deep snow pits and frozen small stream. These were major obstacles to identifying human or vehicle movement traces. In the end-of-day briefing, team leaders agreed no specific evidence of the victim's location yet, but confirmed Mark Ellison's vehicle left home early morning after Anna vanished, heading toward the search area. Lieutenant Hayes concluded in the report, "Weather continues to hinder sweeping. Camden Hills terrain has new snow layers, low trace retention. K9 reacted in pine forest, but no continuous scent. Only evidence remains the recovered glove. Need continued supplemental data monitoring and husband movement verification." The report was sent to Rockport Police Command, with a proposal to maintain search for 3 more days, focusing on northern Camden Hills pine forest and Union Lake Shore, where thick snow might hide key traces related to the disappearance. After 2 fruitless search days, Rockport Police Department shifted focus to interrogating the last person to see the victim, Mark Ellison. The session was held in Interview Room 2 at the department, led by Lieutenant Hayes with a note-taking investigator. Mark was invited in the morning, arrived on time, dressed neatly, bringing personal files and appearing calm. After Wright's explanation, he signed voluntary cooperation. First question centered on the last time Mark saw his wife. He said that evening, they dined together around 9 p.m. Then Anna said she'd shower and sleep early. When Hayes recalled the initial night report stating around 10 p.m. or later, Mark slowly replied, "I don't remember exactly. I was pretty tired that day. Maybe I misspoke." However, investigators noted hesitant tone and detail changes from prior statement. When asked about gas station camera capturing the family Ford Escape leaving town at dawn, Mark admitted he did drive out to look for his wife, but couldn't explain lying about it initially. He said, "He just didn't want misunderstandings, and people might think wrong about me." Hayes shifted to the marriage. Mark described Anna as smart, perfectionist, often bringing work stress home. He said, "Lately she seemed tired, quiet, frequently staying up late on technical drawings." When asked about conflicts or arguments before disappearance, he replied, "Nothing serious, she just got stressed easily. Sometimes I thought she needed a break, so if she really wanted to go somewhere, I'd understand." The response drew investigation attention, as personnel files and colleague statements showed no record of Anna tending to abruptly leave work or home. As the interview turned to practical details, like why Anna's car was home, phone and ID not taken, Mark said, "Maybe she left with an acquaintance. I don't know." The investigator asked for names of possible friends meeting her that night. Mark shook his head, saying Anna had many colleagues. He didn't remember specifics. The response was directionless, offering no verifiable details. Throughout, Mark's demeanor was noted as reserved, avoiding eye contact, slow responses to specific questions. When Hayes asked his thoughts on Anna possibly in an accident, Mark replied briefly, "I hope she just needs time. No worry or urgency, voice even, almost no emotion." Audio records showed many long pauses, Mark looking at the table or around the room instead of answering directly. Mid-session, Hayes asked about the next morning's schedule. Mark claimed leaving at 6 to drive around Union Lake searching, but camera data showed the vehicle from 5:12 a.m. When pressed to explain, he said the car clock must be wrong. Yet camera time was verified accurate via GPS. Police noted the inconsistency in the record, categorizing as inconsistent statements. The final part focused on the victim's personal habits. Mark said Anna was private, rarely shared with neighbors, but called her mother every evening. When asked if she made that call the disappearance night, he said don't know, while her phone was found at home. When asked about other personal items, Mark confirmed nothing missing except the red coat she wore leaving work. After over 2 hours, the interview ended. police had no direct evidence to charge Mark Ellison or prove criminal act. Still, in an internal memo, Lieutenant Hayes commented that subject statements contradictory, especially on departure time, and uncooperative attitude when cross-referencing objective info. He proposed continued monitoring of Mark's behavior during expanded search. When told he could leave, Mark thanked briefly, asked nothing about investigation progress. He left the department early afternoon, walking slowly, not looking back. In the day's closing report, Hayes wrote the final line, "Insufficient grounds for prosecution or detention. Subject released home, temporarily maintained as key witness." After the first interrogation concluded without yielding any clear progress, the Rockport Police Department decided to conduct a second crime scene examination with the participation of the Maine State Forensic Technical Team. The objective was to thoroughly search the entire Ellison couple's house and vehicle to identify any physical evidence that could support the investigation direction. The examination took place on the morning of the 5th day since the disappearance was reported, under dry and cold weather conditions, with the snow on the ground beginning to melt. The property was completely sealed off again for 48 hours, requiring Mark Ellison to temporarily move out to facilitate the technical work. The forensic team started from the ground floor. Each room was filmed, areas were numbered, and samples were collected according to standard procedures. In the kitchen, technicians noticed an unusual detail on the hardwood floor. Near the dining table, there was a small crescent-shaped scratch and a wood indentation about the size of a fingertip. When illuminated with oblique light, the surface reflected differently from the rest of the floor, suggesting a strong impact or a heavy object being dragged. Wood shavings were scraped off, sealed in a specialized bag, labeled E06 floor. On the dining table, next to where Anna usually sat, there remained a faint stain that could be water or a cleaning agent. The area around the kitchen was swept with chemicals to check for biological traces, with initial results negative. The living room, hallway, and stairs showed no signs of a struggle. However, the technical team noted a faint smudge on the second-floor stair handrail, shaped similarly to a handprint but lacking enough detail for fingerprint identification. In the bedroom, all personal items remained in their positions from the previous inspection, but the bedsheet had a small wrinkle right at the edge, differing from the rest. Under the bed, there were no foreign objects, only a thin layer of dust and a few long hairs collected for later analysis. Moving to the garage area, the forensic team focused on the silver Ford Escape, owned by Mark Ellison. The vehicle was towed out of the house for a comprehensive inspection under good lighting conditions. The trunk was the first area of attention. On the rubber mat surface, they discovered multiple dried mud streaks and leaf fragments, distributed unevenly in patches. Some mud particles were stuck tightly in the lower corners, with a reddish-brown sheen, differing from the soil color typically seen in the residential area. When sampling, technicians noted a distinct pine resin smell, suggesting origin from a forested area. Additionally, the lower edge of the trunk mat had a small cut, possibly from a sharp object or hard edge rubbing against it. All mud, leaf, and fiber samples were collected, numbered from E07A to E07D, and sealed in moisture-proof containers. The vehicle interior was thoroughly inspected, with no blood traces or foreign fibers found. Samples of fibers were taken from the driver's seat and front passenger seat for comparison with the victim's clothing. A mild cleaning agent smell emanated from the dashboard area, indicating the car may have been wiped down recently. The team's initial report stated, "No biological substances detected, but soil and plant samples in the cargo area show anomalies, requiring origin analysis." After completing the vehicle inspection, the team moved to the shed in the backyard. The small shed, used for storing gardening tools and repair materials, had a loosely locked door. On the concrete floor, among old paint cans, they discovered a pair of dark brown hiking boots with dried mud on the soles and leather edges. Inside the boots, some soil crumbs remained, with a texture similar to the mud in the car trunk. The brand and size matched what Mark Ellison typically wore. When questioned, he confirmed they were his boots. worn for a forest walk a few weeks ago. The boots were sealed on site, labeled E08. The technical team continued collecting additional soil samples around the shed area and the backyard exit path for comparison. Melting snow revealed gray clay soil without the reddish-brown color like in the vehicle mud samples. This was noted as not matching the local residential geological background color. All evidence collected that day was transferred to the state laboratory in Augusta for mineral testing and biological composition determination. The preliminary report after the examination listed one small scratch and indentation on the kitchen floor, likely formed by strong physical impact. 2 mud and leaf samples in the car trunk, originating differently from the residential area. 3 hiking boots with matching mud type, likely from the same time. 4 no signs of forced entry or direct biological traces in the house. Lieutenant Hayes signed to confirm the minutes, concluding in the notes, no overt criminal activity inside the scene, but mechanical traces on the kitchen floor and materials in the vehicle suggest possible movement under non-residential conditions. Mud and leaf samples need analysis to determine corresponding geographic location. By the end of the day, all evidence was sealed and transferred to the department's storage under case number ME07-1294, preparing for detailed appraisal in the next phase of the investigation. Immediately after the crime scene examination results were finalized, the investigative team handling Anna Liang's disappearance shifted to the personal data analysis phase, focusing on phone activity, bank accounts, and the victim's travel history in the days before she went missing. This review was conducted at the Rockport Police Department's Technical Center, with support from the Maine State Police Information Technology Division. A copy of Anna's phone data was requested from the carrier U.S. Cellular. In the retrieved records, her phone signal remained active normally until the evening of March 11th, identified as the night of the disappearance. The call log showed the last outgoing call at 9:47 p.m. to her mother's number in Massachusetts, lasting nearly 10 minutes. Afterward, there were no further outgoing calls, messages, or network activity. The phone signal ceased completely at 11:12 p.m., when the device disconnected from the cell tower near Camden Hills, about 7 miles from her home. This time and location drew particular attention from investigators, as the Camden Hills forest was the area where search efforts had focused in the initial days. When compared with data from cell towers around Rockport, technicians confirmed that Anna's device never reconnected after 11:12 p.m. This ruled out the possibility of her leaving the area by personal vehicle that night. Based on the technical report, Lieutenant Hayes concluded the final mobile device signal indicates a location overlapping the current search area, with no movement beyond a 10-mile radius. The device was not powered on or charged since the signal loss. In parallel with phone analysis, the team also reviewed all of the victim's bank accounts and credit cards. Data provided by Midco Testes Bank confirmed no transactions after March 11th. The most recent card use was that afternoon at the Hannaford grocery store in town, where Anna purchased some food items and a pack of tea. The amount was small and unremarkable. After that time, all her credit cards, debit cards, and electronic accounts were inactive. Authorities also checked ATM systems and found no images matching the victim's description in subsequent days. Out-of-state travel data was verified through transportation agencies. Records of train, bus, and air tickets that week had no names or information matching Anna Liang. The nearest highway toll booth also recorded no license plate for the family's Ford Escape, leaving the Rockport area. Police checked inner-city bus depots in Augusta and Portland, but found no signs of her using public transportation. The technical team's summary report concluded no evidence that the victim actively left the living area. Financial and communication activities stopped abruptly on the night of March 11th. To reinforce the data, a timeline location map was reconstructed, simulating mobile signal positions in the 24 hours before disconnection. From this, police determined her daily movement was entirely normal, leaving home at 7:20 a.m. to the factory in Bath, ending shift at 6:05 p.m., stopping at the grocery store at 6:42 p.m., then returning home, around 7:30 p.m. All these points matched cell tower data and traffic camera images on the route back to Rockport. After returning home, the device only connected to residential area towers until 11:12 p.m. before losing signal completely in the Camden Hills area. The fact that Anna's phone disconnected at a location outside the residential area was considered a key detail. Per standard procedure, when a device is turned off, battery dies, or is destroyed, the final data often retains coordinates of the nearest connected cell tower. The distance between Anna's home and this recorded point led investigators to posit two possibilities. Either she left the house herself with the phone to the forest, or the device was moved outside without the owner's intent. Lieutenant Hayes directed cross-referencing Mark Ellison's location data in the same time frame. However, in 2007, his phone was a basic model without location logging, so verification was impossible. Nonetheless, the coincidence between the Ford Escape's potential movement direction and the victim's final phone signal was noted in the technical report as a point needing clarification. By the end of the workday, the technical team completed a 12-page summary listing all information related to Anna Liang's financial and communication activities in the 72 hours before disappearance. The report concluded, data shows the victim performed no actions indicating intent to leave residence or travel far. Activity stopped abruptly around 11:12 p.m. on March 11th in the Camden Hills forest area. No signs of out-of-state movement or public transportation use after this time. The minutes were signed by Lieutenant Hayes and attached to the case file, marking completion of the initial data analysis phase. After phone data confirmed Anna Liang's final signal stopped near Camden Hills Forest, the Rockport Police Department immediately expanded the official search scope to this area. The plan was implemented on March 18, 1 week after the disappearance report, involving the Maine State Rescue Team, K-9 Unit, Special Police Forces, and over 30 local volunteers. A temporary command base was set at the parking lot near the southern entrance of Camden Hills State Park, where topographic maps, positioning equipment, and assignment lists were arranged into separate search groups. The Camden Hills terrain was rugged, interspersed with dense pine forests and rocky slopes, making movement difficult. Daytime temperatures remained below 0 degrees Celsius, with old snow forming layers over 20 centimeters thick, severely hindering thermal detection. Groups were divided into 3 main routes: east toward Megantic Lake, west along the Mount Batty Trail, and center along the Maiden Cliff Trail, the closest to the last phone tower connection. On the first day, K-9 units were released into the central area. 2 dogs tracked the scent from Anna's clothing samples, but lost the trail after a few hundred meters. Both stopped near a mossy depression with dry pine branches, where the rescue team noted a distinct mud and damp soil smell, but no suspicious objects. The technical team took soil samples for comparison with mud from the Ford Escape trunk. However, preliminary appraisal showed differences in color and mineral composition, not a full match. In subsequent days, the search expanded to a 5-mile radius. Over 100 suspect points were marked on the map, including rock crevices, water pools, stream gaps, and snow-disturbed areas. Low-altitude drones were used for overhead scanning, but harsh weather and thick canopy coverage made images blurry and hard to analyze. A state technical team was dispatched to assist, using ground-penetrating radar at 3 suspect points, but no signs of burial or recent soil disturbance. In the second week, search forces focused around Union Lake, where flow from Camden Hills Forest converged. Volunteer divers from Knox County Rescue Unit were mobilized with sonar equipment to scan the lake bottom. The survey lasted 4 continuous days, but found no human-shaped objects or personal items. Recovered fabric scraps and plastic bags were identified as old trash. By early April, as snow fully melted, police organized 3 final wide-area sweeps. Each involved over 40 people, working shifts from early morning to dusk. Along trails, many old shoe prints were found, but dating or sole type couldn't be determined due to erosion. A silver metal button was discovered under a maple tree but appraisal showed it was common accessory, unrelated to the victim's clothing. Lieutenant Hayes, in weekly brief press conferences, emphasized no evidence yet determining the victim's outcome, while acknowledging survival chances after over 2 weeks in such weather are nearly zero. Local media covered intensively. Many Rockport and Camden residents supported with food, fuel, and supplies for rescue teams. However, despite 2 months of effort, no new discoveries were recorded. On May 19, 2007, the search operation officially ended. In the summary report, Rockport police stated, "No body, physical traces, or personal items of the victim found within 15 miles of the final phone signal area. Camden Hills fully swept by manpower, radar scanning, and thermal detection. No definitive results." The 48-page report was filed under ME07-1294 Field Search Operation and sent to the Maine State Police Office. Immediately after, investigators shifted from rescue search to criminal investigation. The absence of any self-departure or accident signs, plus inconsistencies in Mark Ellison's statements, led authorities to assess the case as no longer a standard missing person. On May 22, the file was transferred to the State Serious Crimes Investigation Division. Recoded as ME07-1294, Suspicious Disappearance, Potential Homicide. A supplemental order was issued to collect all additional evidence, documents, and examination results. The laboratory in Augusta continued to hold the mud samples, fabric fibers, and physical traces from the scene for in-depth analyses. At the same time, informal surveillance of Mark Ellison was maintained, with the note insufficient grounds for prosecution, but a subject requiring observation. By the end of the month, an internal report was sent to the Maine Department of Justice, affirming the case lacks conclusive evidence but has grounds for suspicion of criminal activity. Thus, after 2 months of relentless searching in the cold snow and deep forest, the investigation entered a new phase when, from a mysterious disappearance, it was officially designated a formal criminal case file. When the case file was transferred to the state criminal investigation level, one of the first actions the technical team took was to re-examine all of the victim's electronic devices, including the personal laptop, external storage drive, and previously sealed mobile phone. On June 2, 2007, digital data technician Ethan Crawley from the Augusta Appraisal Lab began analyzing the hard drive of the Dell Inspiron personal computer that Anna Liang used for work. The device was confirmed to be her property, used for both personal purposes and remote work for Bath Iron Works. Initially, the inspection revealed no abnormalities. Most data consisted of mechanical design files, 3D drawings, and administrative documents. However, during an automated scan with hidden file recovery software, Ethan noticed an encrypted system folder deep in the C drive, named System_Temp2. Inside was a single audio file in .wav format, nearly 600 MB in size, created on March 11, matching the night Anna disappeared. Upon opening the file, the technician recognized it as a recording over 40 minutes long, capturing ambient sounds inside the house. The quality was quite clear, indicating the recording source was fixed, possibly from the laptop's microphone while active. The beginning contained familiar noises, clinking dishes, footsteps, and running water, consistent with an evening kitchen scene. After a few minutes, a female voice identified as Anna's emerged, in intermittent dialogue with a male voice identified as Mark Ellison's. The initial content was normal, revolving around work and family matters, but gradually turned tense. According to the minute-by-minute transcript, the conversation showed signs of intense conflict. Anna questioned her husband about controlling and monitoring her messages, while Mark accused her of hiding something and being dishonest. Both voices escalated, with light object collision sounds appearing at minute 23. Anna demanded Mark leave the kitchen, but his voice continued, loud and pressing. At minute 28, there was a strong impact sound, like a wooden chair falling, followed by a short silence, then rapid footsteps. From minute 30 onward, only heavy breathing and scattered small sounds remained, hard to identify sources. At the end of the file, in the final 15 seconds, a heavy low sound resonated, like something falling hard onto the wooden floor, then abrupt silence. No further words, no sounds of leaving the room or closing a door. Nearly the entire ending was absolute silence, with only the house ventilation system's background hum. Ethan Crawley immediately stopped playback, created a data copy, and analyzed the file's metadata. Results showed the file started at 9:35 p.m. and stopped recording at exactly 10:17 p.m., within the time frame when traffic cameras recorded. Mark still in the residential area. Technical traces also confirmed the recording was not manual. The Windows recording program was set to automatic mode whenever the computer was powered on, without login activity. This meant the file could have been created unintentionally, with the computer still running after work hours. When the audio copy was transferred to the investigative team, Lieutenant Hayes requested listening to the entire file in a closed room. The three-person group listened continuously twice, then compiled detailed minutes for each unusual sound segment. In the evaluation, the audio specialist confirmed no signs of splicing or editing, and the voices matched samples from Mark Ellison's interrogations. However, since there was no visual or direct evidence of what occurred after the final sound, the recording was classified as potential evidence of undetermined nature. To ensure legal procedure, the original audio file was sealed in a dedicated hard drive, accompanied by a custody minute signed by 2 technicians and Lieutenant Hayes. An encrypted copy was stored on the State Police secure server, coded E09 audio. In the final note of the report, Hayes clearly stated, "Audio file recovered from the victim's personal computer may document events prior to disappearance. Final sounds include strong impact and prolonged silence. Cannot rule out this being the last recording of the victim's life." This discovery immediately shifted the investigation direction. Internally, officers discussed the possibility of Mark Ellison being at the scene during the time frame matching the recording. However, without forensic results proving the recording's incident directly involved violence, police could only hold the file as potential evidence. By day's end, Hayes signed the minutes, requiring absolute secrecy for the audio file until additional analysis results. Thus, among hundreds of pages of recovered electronic data, only one file, the 40-minute hidden recording in the computer, became the first critical piece revealing real conflict between the couple on the night Anna disappeared. From here, the investigation no longer revolved around the voluntary departure hypothesis, but officially shifted to examining the possibility of criminal activity occurring inside the Rockport house on the night of March 11, 2007. Despite the hidden recording from Anna Liang's personal computer bringing a new ray of hope, the investigation quickly fell back into deadlock. After over 3 months of review and appraisal, no physical evidence was strong enough to confirm a crime occurred. Police found no body, no direct witnesses, no blood traces or DNA in the house or vehicle. All data remained at the possibility and assumption level. The audio file raised suspicions, but Mark Ellison's lawyer argued it could not determine exact timing and circumstances when the recording ended. The Knox County Prosecutor's Office, after reviewing the entire file, concluded insufficient grounds for criminal indictment. Lieutenant Hayes, the primary case officer, sent a 72-page summary in September 2007. The report opened with no specific evidence proving Anna Liang is alive or dead. In the evaluation, he noted, "The case lacks material elements, no witnesses, and all investigative directions rely on indirect judgment." Although the recording showed marital conflict, without direct evidence of subsequent consequences, police could only view it as a civil argument with undetermined outcome. Mark Ellison, after a short surveillance period, had the order lifted. He left Rockport, moving to live with his mother in Portland. The local community gradually quieted, though rumors persisted. Some believed Anna left to start a new life elsewhere. Others thought she was a victim of a sophisticated body concealment crime, but all were speculation. Investigators obtained no further electronic data. Email, diary, social media accounts all ceased activity on the same day. By the end of 2007, the Rockport Police Department was forced to transfer the file to the Maine State Bureau of Investigation per regulations for prolonged unresolved disappearances. On December 17, document MEPPID 321 2007 officially established case MEPPID 7-1294. Suspicious disappearance of Anna Liang as a cold case. From then, all investigation data, evidence, and analysis samples were transferred to the Unsolved Crimes Storage in Bangor. In this storage, over 40 items were sealed, from the mud-stained hiking boots, trunk soil samples, to the victim's computer audio file, all placed in specialized aluminum boxes, coded ME07-1294, A to ME07-1294, Q. Items were preserved under controlled temperature, awaiting future appraisal technologies. State police also retained copies of the computer hard drive, external storage, and all interrogation minutes. By early 2008, the case was officially listed as cold case, active pending new evidence. This meant the file was not permanently closed, but could only be reopened with new physical discoveries or witnesses. Internally, the case was seen as one of the most difficult ever recorded in coastal Maine. A disappearance without a body, without evidence, without clear investigative direction. Lieutenant Hayes, in his final report to superiors, noted personally, "What makes this case special is the feeling everything stopped just before the threshold of truth. One sound, one silence, then nothing. Cannot prove anything, cannot deny anything." That concluding sentence remained in the Bangor archive copy, becoming the note closing the case's first phase. In subsequent years, file ME07-1294 was only occasionally reviewed per state periodic procedures. Each time, new officers concluded similarly, insufficient legal grounds to expand investigation, no new evidence, no genetic or biological traces found. Mud and leaf samples were reappraised twice with new mineral comparison technology, but results showed no match to any specific location in Camden Hills. Mark Ellison's boots, after DNA appraisal, showed no blood or organic fibers related to Anna. The victim's family left Maine, carrying faint hope that one day the truth would be revealed. Articles about the case thinned, only a few lines in local news sections on disappearance anniversaries. In the state's cold case list, Maine 07-1294 ranked 41st out of 63 unsolved files. Noted, missing person, presumed dead, no body. In Bangor's storage room, the silver evidence box with the case number sat quietly on the fourth shelf among 1990s files. On the lid, Lieutenant Hayes's scrawled black pen note remained. "Keep sealed. Evidence may speak later." The Anna Liang case, from a shocking disappearance in Rockport, gradually swallowed by time, became a name mentioned in state police training as a typical example of criminal investigation limits, where all data led to emptiness. From then, the case fell into silence, lasting over a decade. No one charged, no one exonerated, no body, no clues. Only thick files, a few sealed samples, and the unanswered question. On the night of March 11, 2007, what really happened inside the small house in Rockport, Maine? In later years, the Anna Liang case was gradually overshadowed by new events, only occasionally recalled in state investigation training as a typical traceless disappearance. All that remained was file ME07-1294, lying silent in Bangor storage, until early 2020, when nature and time decided to speak for humans. That January, as winter in coastal Maine began warming, Camden Hills Forest reopened for workers to check fallen trees after snowstorms. On the morning of January 14th, a Maine Forestry Bureau crew working along the Maiden Cliff Trail, nearly 8 miles from central Rockport, noticed something unusual. When one of them, Evan McDougall, used a shovel to flip an uprooted pine root, the soil beneath revealed a differently colored patch, concave with a strange smell. While clearing surrounding dirt, McDougall saw a smooth round object, grayish-white, protruding from the mud. He bent down, gently brushed aside decayed leaves, then froze. It was part of a human skull, partially exposed in the dim morning light. The area was immediately sealed off. Knox County Police and the Maine State Forensic Team arrived within 2 hours. From a roughly 3-square-meter clearing, technicians gradually excavated layer by layer. The shallow grave, only over 40 centimeters deep, showed signs of being hastily covered with forest soil and dry leaves. Beneath the damp soil, they discovered a nearly intact human skeleton, lying on its side, arms folded in front of the chest. Part of the rear ribs showed fracture signs, left femur broken off. Remaining fabric scraps around the upper torso were dark red, matching descriptions of the jacket Anna Liang wore on her disappearance day in 2007. During excavation, the forensic team also found a small silver bracelet, tarnished, lying under the soil near the skeleton's right wrist. The inner side was engraved to ALL, Me, 2005. The inscription matched initial file details. Anna was once given a silver bracelet by colleagues commemorating her first project completion at Bath Iron Works. Next to the bracelet was a torn red fabric piece with silver thread pattern, identical to the wool of gloves police collected 13 years earlier. This discovery silenced the officers at the scene. No one spoke loudly. Wind whistled through pine canopies, and snowflakes drifted lightly around the excavation site. Once the focus of a fruitless 2-month spring 2007 search. The remains were sealed and transferred to the State Central Forensic Lab in Augusta that evening. DNA appraisal was prioritized due to suspected links to cold case ME071294. While the forensic team worked, Evans, then a cold case program advisor, was urgently notified. He left Orono that night, arriving at the forensic center the next morning. Preliminary results were announced less than a week later. DNA from the arm bone matched perfectly with family-stored samples for Anna Liang. The brief report had one concluding line: positive identification, remains of Anna Liang, deceased. Information was forwarded to the state prosecutor's office on January 21, 2020. Local media began reporting, female body found in Camden Hills may relate to 2007 disappearance. Rockport police issued a statement confirming DNA results, officially declaring Anna Liang's disappearance a homicide. At that afternoon's press conference, the state spokesperson said briefly, "After 13 years, we have found Anna Liang. This is no longer a disappearance, this is a criminal case." The detailed autopsy report was completed by late February. Results showed right ribs 6 through 9 completely fractured, suggesting strong impact from behind or heavy object compression. Additionally, the rear skull had a nearly 6 centimeters longitudinal crack, determined as antemortem injury. No knife or gunshot traces, no toxins in remaining bone. Time of death estimated to match the 2007 disappearance period. The chief medical examiner concluded, cause of death most likely severe mechanical trauma to head and chest. The excavation area was later expanded 30 meters around the original site. The forensic team found additional small items, metal buttons, zipper fragments, and 2 silver threads stuck in mud, sent for comparison with old clothing samples. None contained intact biological traces, but all were sealed as supporting evidence. The matching fabric color and bracelet were sufficient to confirm the found person's identity. As news spread, many Rockport residents expressed shock. Those who joined the 2007 search said the body location was less than half a mile from areas they swept. Rugged terrain, thick snow, and dense canopy may have caused the spot to be overlooked. For the new investigative team, this was not just a discovery, but proof of the value in preserving evidence and persistently pursuing old files. Immediately after appraisal results were announced, the Maine Chief Prosecutor's Office signed to fully restart case file ME071294, renaming it State of Maine v. Unidentified Suspect. Homicide of Anna Liang. All documents, evidence, and ongoing plant DNA analysis per Evans's proposal were re-entered into the official investigation file. State police coordinated with Knox County Criminal Investigation Unit to form a new task force named Camden Hills Task Force, led by Lieutenant Joseph Albright. Lieutenant Albright, in the first internal meeting, said, "We are no longer searching for a missing person. Now, we hunt the killer." Inside Augusta's storage room, old evidence boxes were placed back on appraisal tables, this time under new LED white lights. After 13 years, forgotten pieces were gradually reassembled, starting from the tarnished silver bracelet, mud-stained red fabric scrap, and a skeleton silently lying under Camden Hills forest soil for over a decade. By the end of February 2020, Maine officially announced the case reopened for full investigation. Anna Liang's name, for the first time in 13 years, was removed from the missing persons unknown whereabouts list, transferred to victim of unsolved homicide. The door to case Me071294, once sealed in Bangor's cold storage, was opened again, and this time, no one viewed it as a dead file. Immediately after file Me071294 was restarted in early 2020, Maine's new investigative team took the critical first step, re-examining all evidence seized in 2007. Under Lieutenant Joseph Albright's direction and technical advisor David Evans, every item was removed from Bangor's storage and transferred to the Augusta Forensic Center for review, classification, and viability assessment for reappraisal. Sealed boxes were opened in a closed room, each evidence item photographed and cross-referenced with Lieutenant Hayes's original minutes, who led the investigation 13 years prior. On the verification table, old evidence reappeared: the dark brown hiking boots, soles still caked with dried dark mud streaks, small bags containing soil, leaves and moss from Mark Ellison's Ford Escape trunk, the audio file recovered from the victim's laptop, and copies of both spouses' mobile phone signal logs from the night of March 11, 2007. Each sample was laser scanned to confirm seal integrity. Results all intact, no damage or unauthorized opening signs. Lieutenant Albright prioritized 3 evidence groups with highest forensic value potential: mud samples, boots, and audio file. Regarding mud, he emphasized, if we can prove the vehicle soil matches the body discovery area, the 13-year gap will be bridged. With that request, the lab immediately sent correspondence to the University of Maine at Orono's Plant DNA Laboratory, collaborating with the Cold Case Initiative. Professor Elaine Cutter, who participated in Evans's 2019 proposal, agreed to handle extraction and sequencing of plant DNA from these samples. In the first technical meeting, Evans reiterated his hypothesis. Mud in the trunk and on the boots likely contains DNA from endemic plants in Camden Hills, cedar or dwarf pine, only growing in the park's central strip. In 2007, we had no way to prove it. Now, with DNA barcoding, we can pinpoint origin within a few hundred meters. The lab received 2 original samples, coded E07B and E08, sealed in moisture-proof bags since 2007. In parallel with soil analysis, the Rockport police forensic team re-examined the hiking boots. Under electron microscope, specialists noted the sole treads still retained tiny soil particles and decayed plant fibers. These were additionally sampled and sent to Orono for cross-comparison with trunk mud. Furthermore, a small amount of dust on the inner boot rim was separated to determine relative timing of the dried mud layer. The initial report indicated soil structure similar to clay sand mix in Camden Hills limestone forest, markedly different from light brown soil, typical in Rockport residential areas. Meanwhile, the digital team focused on the audio file. After recovering the original copy, they used next-generation audio analysis software to remove noise and enhance clarity in the final segment. Results improved significantly from the 2007 listening. The strong impact sound was clearly identified as a heavy hard object falling onto the wooden floor, not a chair tipping as previously assumed. The subsequent portion featured a short low tone, possibly breathing or footsteps moving. However, insufficient data existed to determine whose sound it was. The analysis was saved in 3 formats and attached to a professional minute, numbered ME07 Audio 2021. In addition to primary evidence, the investigative team requested restoration and reanalysis of old phone signal logs. Thanks to fully archived mobile databases at the carrier, technicians confirmed access to far more detailed signal maps than in 2007. Applying multi-tower positioning tools, the map clearly showed Anna's device lost signal in central Camden Hills, only 0.6 miles north of the body discovery point. This finding was seen as solid reinforcement linking electronic data to the victim's recovery site. In the report to the State Investigation Committee, Evans specified the scientific goals of the re-examination phase, determined geographic origin of mud and plant materials collected from suspect Mark Ellison's vehicle, cross-reference with biological profiles at the body discovery area to verify match. Second goal is to strengthen digital and audio evidence, showing conflict timing coincides with disappearance window. The file was sent to the University of Maine at Arono's Biology Lab, the state's only plant DNA research unit, specializing in environmental and special criminal cases. Mud, dried leaves, and pollen samples were extracted, coded, and compared against the Camden Hills Regional Biological Database. The work lasted nearly 2 months under absolute secrecy, as its results could become the first direct evidence linking the suspect to the body site. By late April 2020, the appraisal was complete. The lab sent the Augusta Forensic Center a nearly 60-page report with detailed genetic structure charts of plant samples. On the cover, bold text stood out like an affirmation for the new investigation phase. Comparative Botanical DNA Analysis, Case ME07 1294. Inside, detailed analysis of plant gene sequences from mud collected from Mark Ellison's trunk and boot soles was compared to soil and leaves at Anna Liang's Camden Hills body site. The final conclusion silenced the entire team. Plant DNA in the mud fully matched Pinus strobus, eastern white pine, characteristically dense only in central Camden Hills forest where the body was found. Professor Elaine Cutter, leading the analysis, presented results via online meeting with the team. On screen, she pointed to comparison charts. Mud sample DNA sequences match 99.87%, with forest leaf and pollen samples, including characteristic mutation on chloroplast LSC gene region, endemic marker for Camden Hills white pine population, absent in Rockport or coastal areas. She added that mud also contained traces of symbiotic fungus, Suillus americanus, growing only in white pine root systems. No mistaking it, she concluded. This soil could only come from where the body was found. Upon hearing results, Lieutenant Joseph Albright immediately requested cross-comparison with 2007 control samples. Results confirmed mud in the Ford Escape trunk and on Mark Ellison's hiking boot soles contained plant DNA matching 2020 excavation site samples. 3 independent sources pointed to one geographic location, Maiden Cliff Trail area, Camden Hills. The summary report to the State Investigation Committee on May 2 stated, plant DNA analysis confirms mud samples from suspect Mark Ellison's evidence originate from the same location as victim Anna Liang's body discovery area. Random match probability 0.001. This is the first direct physical evidence linking suspect to the scene. This was the result investigators lacked for 13 years, undeniable scientific proof connecting the vehicle, boots, and their owner to the burial site. Evans, who persistently pursued this direction since 2019, read each line of the report and said slowly, "Those mud particles were in the trunk the whole time we searched for her. We just needed technology good enough to hear them speak." Immediately after report confirmation, Lieutenant Albright ordered resealing of boots and mud samples, creating new evidence, minutes coded ME07 1294-2. Samples were transferred to the Central Evidence Room, stored at 4 degrees Celsius for future court presentation. Simultaneously, the team held an emergency meeting to assess legal implications. State Prosecutor's Office Representative, Attorney William Yates, assessed, if we can prove Mark Ellison was the sole driver of the vehicle during the victim's disappearance window, we have a direct evidentiary chain between him and the burial site. That is the foundation for criminal prosecution. To further strengthen, the digital team continued cross-referencing 2007 gas station camera data on the Ford Escape's route. Based on recorded time and direction, they reconstructed the likely path the vehicle took on the night of March 11th. The trail to Camden Hills lay directly within possible routes, only 14 minutes drive from the vehicle's last recorded appearance. Overlaying the route map with the body site, distance between points was 1.2 miles. This made lab conclusions even more convincing. Additional biology lab appraisal showed mud contained small amounts of soil microorganism, DNA Burkholderia, Sapacea, existing only in moist land near Meganticook Lake, adjacent to Camden Hills. This detail further pinpointed geographic accuracy. Thus, results not only proved the vehicle and boots were present in Camden Hills Forest, but narrowed location to within a few hundred meters of the body site. The official comprehensive report was completed on May 7, 2020. On the final page, Professor Cutter's research team wrote, "Plant and microbial DNA analysis confirms with high scientific reliability that evidence mud samples share environmental origin with seen soil samples. No possibility of random coincidence. This is physical evidence establishing direct connection between suspect Mark Ellison and victim burial location." When the file returned to the team, Evans silently viewed experiment result photos. He had followed this case nearly half his career, from early days of hypotheses and guesses. Now, with a few dried soil grains and decayed leaf fragments, truth began taking shape. In that evening's meeting, he told Albright, "No more doubt, Joe, he was there." Right where she lay, Lieutenant Albright nodded. Eyes tense but calm. He ordered supplemental file preparation for the next step, cross-referencing all data with Mark Ellison's old statements. In 2007 files, Mark claimed he never entered Camden Hills Forest and did not know Maiden Cliff Trail. Now, scientific evidence proved otherwise. On May 10, 2020, the plant DNA correlation report was officially submitted to the Maine Chief Prosecutor's Office. Lieutenant Albright's final note in small font made its meaning clear to all. First direct physical evidence linking suspect to victim burial site. After 13 years, case ME0-71294 has a true starting point. From the appraisal room, dried mud grains were returned to metal storage cabinets beside Mark Ellison's dark boots. They were silent, but now, in investigators' eyes, they had become undeniable testimony. The first evidence, and most critical piece, connecting the suspect to where Anna Liang was buried for over 13 years. After plant DNA appraisal confirmed the link between Mark Ellison's evidence and the body discovery area, Lieutenant Joseph Albright's team continued focusing on electronic data, once overlooked due to 2007 technical limitations. This time's goal was clear: determine Mark's mobile phone location immediately after Anna Liang's disappearance. At the time of the crime, Maine mobile positioning technology was primitive. Location data was recorded only via cell towers, without modern GPS. However, by 2020, many carriers had perfected long-term storage systems for legal investigation. Based on official request from the state prosecutor's office, U.S. Cellular retrieved March 2007 tower data. The magnetic tape archive system, used for technical auditing, coincidentally retained full signal routing logs for the subscriber registered under Mark Ellison. Technicians took over 2 weeks to recover and convert data to modern format. When the complete copy arrived at Augusta Investigation Center, the technical room immediately began analysis. The first data line displayed drew team attention on the night of March 11th into early March 12, 2007, exactly the disappearance window. Mark's phone connected 4 times to different towers along the route from Rockport to Camden Hills. Notably, The final connection at 5:27 a.m. was recorded from the southeastern park tower, only 1.4 miles from the body site. This data completely contradicted 2007 statements when Mark claimed he stayed home all night and only went out after 6 a.m. to search for his wife around Union Lake. Per positioning map, the phone left Old County residential area around 4:12 a.m., moved northwest, then temporarily lost signal for about 30 minutes before reconnecting in Camden Hills. After 6 o'clock, the phone returned to Rockport area, matching gas station camera time of Mark's Ford Escape passing. The signal map was reconstructed using specialized software, marking route in chronological order. A red line clearly connected the two areas, from Ellison home to Camden Hills and back, forming a movement loop occurring only in the first 3 morning hours. Evans, monitoring the data presentation, said briefly, "He went there then returned the night she vanished." Technicians continued cross-referencing this data with Anna Liang's phone signals in the same time frame. Her device lost connection completely at 23:12 in central Camden Hills and never reconnected. Location coincidence led the team to conclude both devices appeared in the same area, hours apart. Lieutenant Albright requested a detailed report with graphics simulating Mark Ellison's early March 12, 2007 route. The map clearly showed event sequence his phone left home range just hours after Anna's last recorded argument audio, then moved to the exact area where her body was found 13 years later. When presented to legal advisors, Advisor Evans tapped the table 3 times, emphasizing each conclusion: location, time, direction. 3 factors match perfectly. To ensure authenticity, the prosecutor's office requested independent verification by Eastco Telecommunications investigation firm. The report confirmed time accuracy, minutes, and location within 800-meter error radius, meeting technical evidence standards for proceeding. No data indicated device tampering or use by others. By late May 2020, the team compiled all electronic data, phone positioning maps, all reinforced one scenario: early morning after Anna's disappearance, Mark Ellison left home, drove the Ford Escape toward Camden Hills, reached the park center, then returned before dawn. The official report, titled Telecommunication Evidence Correlation Report, ME 071294, concluded, cell tower data shows Mark Ellison's phone present in Camden Hills area between 4 o'clock, 5:30 a.m. on March 12, 2007. This time frame occurred immediately after victim Anna Liang's phone lost signal. Route matches path from Ellison home to body discovery location. Random coincidence probability under 0.5%. No reasonable explanation for device presence in this area. For investigators, this was the final missing technical piece. Plant DNA evidence had shown vehicle and boot presence at the scene. Phone positioning now proved Mark Ellison physically traveled there on the night and early morning of the victim's disappearance. Lieutenant Albright wrote the final line in the internal summary on May 29. From biological evidence to electronic data, all traces converge on one point. The person, vehicle, and dried soil grains all tell one story: that Mark Ellison left home with Anna Liang's body in the early morning of 2007. With these results, Maine state investigators held the first logical evidence chain after 13 years: physical, biological, and digital, all converging on the same location, time, and person. After phone and positioning data confirmed Mark Ellison's presence in Camden Hills Forest the morning after the disappearance, the team decided to re-examine the hidden audio file discovered in Anna Liang's computer in 2007. This recording, believed to capture the couple's final argument, had long been considered insufficient evidence due to heavy noise and abrupt ending in the final portion. However, with 2020 modern audio processing technology and FBI support, Maine State Police hope to recover critical additional data, clarifying what occurred in the recording's final minutes. In early June 2020, the original audio file copy, coded EME07 audio, was transferred to the FBI Digital Technical Analysis Lab in Quantico, Virginia. This is one of the world's leading centers for digital audio recovery and analysis in criminal cases. The assigned specialist team included 3 forensic audio experts, Laura Bishop, Simon Patel, and Chief Engineer Douglas Reeves. They were tasked with restoring corrupted sections, enhancing signal quality, and identifying primary sound sources throughout the recording. The analysis process lasted over 3 weeks. Specialists used multi-layer audio signal reconstruction software to separate environmental noise from voices and impacts. When background noise was removed, a gradually weakening sound sequence emerged in the file's end, lasting about 2 minutes, previously heard only as silence. Douglas Reeves described in the report, after minute 37, background audio changes significantly. There is rapid breathing, object movement sounds, then short friction screech, like fabric being dragged. About 10 seconds later, a series of heavy low sounds appears, characteristic of objects falling or strong impact with wooden floor. Engineers identified at least 3 clear impact points, frequencies above 800 Hz, decreasing amplitude, matching sequential fall patterns, possibly a body collapsing or heavy object being toppled. Following that sound sequence, the system recorded 18 seconds of complete silence, then faint breathing and light metal clink, sound consistent with chair frame or small iron object. Finally, at second 40:57, recording signal cut completely. The FBI compared audio spectra with 2007 scene samples. Results showed impact frequencies corresponding to hardwood kitchen floor in the Ellison home. Echo and delay matched old room measurement diagrams. Experts concluded the entire ending segment occurred in an enclosed space, very likely the kitchen, with no external sound sources. When the restored audio was ready, the Maine state team was permitted to listen to the full enhanced version in a high-security verification room. Lieutenant Albright, Advisor Evans, and State Prosecutor's Office representative were present. In the soundproof room, as audio played, no one spoke. Anna's voice started weak, mixed with Mark's rising tone, words unclear and back and forth. Then, in the final minute, breaking and impact sounds rang clear, followed by absolute silence. Evans looked at the timeline, nodding slightly. He understood this was no longer an argument, as once called, but direct evidence of violent acts the night Anna vanished. The FBI analysis report, 32 pages long, was returned to Maine State Police on June 29, 2020. The final conclusion stated, restored audio section shows clear signs of physical conflict in enclosed environment. At least 3 strong impact sounds consistent with fall or physical impact hypothesis. No evidence of fabrication or splicing. Recording is original, unedited. Immediately upon receipt, Lieutenant Albright added the restored audio to the critical evidence list, coded ME07 Audio R3, and sent a copy to the State Chief Prosecutor's office. At that evening's emergency meeting, Prosecutor Representative William Yates stated, "We now have linkage between scientific evidence and behavioral data. This audio describes events immediately before the victim's death, and only one person was present, Mark Ellison." To ensure legal validity, the FBI also attached an affidavit confirming the entire recovery process was conducted under federal specialist supervision, complying with the chain of custody. This allowed the file to be presented in court without disputes over origin. Lieutenant Albright, in the final June internal summary, noted briefly, restored audio evidence confirms violent conflict occurred in the victim's home immediately before device signal loss and before the suspect left for Camden Hills. This is the final piece, solidifying the event chain on the night of March 11, 2007. With this discovery, the Anna Liang case officially emerged from the 13-year fog. Physical evidence from plant DNA, phone positioning data, and now audio capturing violent events, all converged. In the final internal meeting at Augusta, Evans looked around the room where evidence boxes were reopened after over a decade. He said slowly, almost whispering, "Everything began with a silence. And now, The sound itself has made the truth speak. The recovered audio analysis, Me071294 report, was signed and confirmed on June 30, 2020. Lieutenant Albright's concluding note stated clearly, "This is direct evidence supporting murder charges. No doubt remains that violence occurred before Anna Liang disappeared." By early July 2020, when the FBI restored audio analysis was validated, the Maine state team knew they held the complete evidence chain needed to reconstruct the crime night. In Lieutenant Joseph Albright's Augusta office, summary boards covered walls, one side plant DNA data, one side phone positioning maps, and in the center, the nearly fully restored audio file. Each piece, scattered for 13 years, now fit into a unified picture. The Maine Chief Prosecutor's Office appointed a special prosecution team, led by attorney William Yates, to assess indictment viability. In the July 9 meeting, the team presented all appraisal results. First, plant DNA in mud from Mark Ellison's boots and trunk matched soil at the body site. Second, phone positioning confirmed his presence in Camden Hills early morning after Anna Liang's disappearance. Third, the audio file showed violent conflict in the home that night. And finally, the forensic report determined Anna's cause of death as severe mechanical trauma to head and chest, consistent with recording impacts. Attorney Yates concluded, "We have physical, technical, and behavioral evidence, all pointing to one person. This is a tightly linked circumstantial chain, sufficient for second-degree murder charges under Maine law." He signed the arrest warrant request minute and submitted it to Knox County Court the same day. In the petition to the judge, the prosecution wrote, "Scientific evidence and electronic data prove Mark Ellison caused Anna Liang's death at their residence on the night of March 11, 2007, then transported the victim's body to Camden Hills Forest in his Ford Escape and concealed it. This conduct constitutes second-degree murder and corpse concealment under Section 201 of the Maine Criminal Code." On July 13, 2020, the Knox County Chief Judge approved arrest warrant number 20KX-117, with a federal fugitive warrant since the suspect was believed to have left Maine in 2008. The search was assigned to the State Police Special Investigation Team in coordination with the U.S. Marshals Service. The National NCIC database was updated. Mark Ellison, male, 46 years old, 6'0", brown hair, gray eyes, wanted for homicide. From immigration and tax records, police discovered Mark had moved multiple times over more than 10 years, finally settling in Kansas City, Missouri, working as a contract engineer for an industrial equipment company. Evans, who accompanied the case since reopening, was invited to the arrest advisory team. He assessed, "Mark isn't the typical fugitive. He believed the case was buried forever, and that's what made him complacent." In September 2020, the Maine state team coordinated with Missouri police for covert surveillance at Mark's residence. He lived alone in a second-floor apartment on Independence Avenue. Routine life. Regular work, minimal neighbor interaction. After 3 weeks of monitoring, the arrest was scheduled for October 5, when Mark left for morning work. At 6:40 a.m. that day, Kansas City Police patrol vehicles blocked Mark's car at Truman Road intersection. 2 federal agents and local officers approached, ordering him out. The arrest was swift, without resistance. When informed of the Maine warrant for second-degree murder, Mark was silent, only asking, "That again?" He showed no strong reaction. Just looked down, hands steady on the wheel until handcuffed. Police seized his mobile phone, personal computer, and some documents from the apartment, all sealed and transferred to Augusta for further investigation. At a brief press conference the same day, Lieutenant Joseph Albright confirmed, Mark Ellison, prime suspect in the 2007 Anna Liang homicide, has been arrested in Kansas City, Missouri. This is the result of 13 years of continuous investigation and groundbreaking forensic technology advancements. News of the arrest spread rapidly across Maine. Rockport, the once peaceful town shocked by the disappearance, reappeared on local newspaper front pages. Anna Liang's family, after years of waiting, was directly notified by police. In a short statement to the press, her mother said, "We knew this day would come. My daughter has finally been heard." On October 8th, Mark Ellison was flown from Missouri to Maine, placed in Knox County Jail custody. In intake records, he offered no resistance, only requesting to meet my lawyer as soon as possible. The formal indictment was filed by the State Chief Prosecutor's Office on October 12th, with all evidence documents, plant DNA results, phone positioning data, FBI audio analysis, forensic report, and reconstructed route map. Lieutenant Albright wrote in the post-arrest internal memo, 13 years, 3 generations of investigators, and countless sleepless nights. But science doesn't forget. Every sample, every single, every sound segment kept its promise that truth would eventually find a listener. On October 15, 2020, Knox County Court officially confirmed Mark Ellison's arrest under indictment for second-degree murder in case ME071294. A new chapter in the Anna Liang case, once buried by time, began. After extradition to Maine and detention at Knox County Jail, Mark Ellison was formally interrogated on October 16, 2020, under State Prosecutor's Office supervision and Lieutenant Joseph Albright's investigative team. The interrogation was fully audio and video recorded, lasting over 8 continuous hours in Interview Room 3 at Rockport Police Department. A cold, gray-walled room with only a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a wide-angle camera. Mark was read his full Miranda rights, with appointed attorney Arthur Layton present. He agreed to answer questions, speaking in a low, slow voice, eyes constantly avoiding contact. In the session's early part, Mark completely denied murder charges. He said Anna's death was a terrible accident, and he never intended to harm her. However, when investigators presented scientific evidence, plant DNA from his boots, phone data showing his Camden Hills presence, and the recording depicting the argument with impact sounds, Mark began shifting attitude. He bowed his head, silent for over a minute, then said softly, "All right, there was a scuffle, but I didn't kill her." In his initial statement, Mark said on the night of March 11, 2007, they argued intensely because Anna wanted to separate. He said she was prepared to leave, taking some things, and while trying to stop her, they struggled in the kitchen. She pushed me. I lost balance, hit the chair. When I tried to hold her, her head struck the table edge, he said, voice hoarse. She fell, and I thought she was just unconscious. He insisted no intent to attack, claiming it was an accident. When asked why he didn't call emergency services, Mark replied, "I panicked. I touched her. No breathing. I was scared. I didn't know what to do." Investigator Albright pressed, "So why did you drive to Camden Hills the next morning and bury the body?" Mark was silent, looking at the table, then answered, "I just wanted her to rest in peace. I wasn't thinking clearly. I feared being accused. Thought no one would believe me." He described placing Anna's body in the Ford Escape trunk, driving around 4 a.m. to a remote forest area, and shallowly burying under decayed leaves with a shovel. "I never went back. I just wanted to forget everything." When presented with plant DNA evidence, proving his boots had mud from the exact burial area, Mark only nodded, without denial. However, he maintained no intentional killing. His lawyer tried steering the interrogation toward accidental elements, emphasizing no injury weapon, no premeditation. But investigators countered that rib and skull injuries showed extreme force, far beyond a normal fall. Lieutenant Albright read aloud the forensic report conclusion: 6 centimeter skull crack, 4 right rib fractures, severe chest trauma. This cannot be light impact. She was struck hard, Mark. Before that statement, Mark bowed his head, hands clasped, silent for a long time. Finally, he only said, "I don't remember clearly. I just know I was very angry then." After a short break, the interrogation shifted to post-death behavior. Police asked why he locked doors, cleaned, erased traces, and lied for years. Mark admitted wiping the kitchen floor with cleaner, replacing the wall clock, and discarding rags. "I thought if no one knew, it would all disappear," he said, voice trembling. I couldn't bear being seen as a killer. Attorney Layton tried requesting a pause, but Mark signaled to continue. He stated, after burying the body, he returned home, slept a few hours, then reported to police as if Anna was missing. I wanted to believe I didn't do it. I've been lying to myself for 13 years, he said, eyes looking straight into the camera lens. The statement transcript exceeded 80 pages, signed and confirmed at the end of October 16. In the summary, Lieutenant Albright noted, suspect admits scuffle leading to victim's death, admits transporting and concealing body, intentionally covering up the incident. Statement contradicts scientific evidence on injury severity and subsequent behavior, showing indirect intent. The next day, audio and video recordings were duplicated into 2 copies, transferred to the Maine Chief Prosecutor's office. In the court submission report, Prosecutor Yates wrote, Mark Ellison's statement shows action awareness, intentional trace erasure, and victim body concealment. Injury severity and subsequent behavior rule out accident as claimed. Combined evidence fully meets conditions for second-degree murder prosecution under Maine law. On October 19, 2020, case file State of Maine ver. Mark Ellison was officially transferred to the state prosecutor's office for indictment preparation. All documents, from plant DNA, positioning data, incident audio recording, to suspect's confession, were organized in a nearly 200-page dossier. In the investigation phase conclusion report, Lieutenant Albright wrote, 13 years ago, truth was buried under soil and fear. Today, the one who concealed it has admitted. He calls it an accident. But accidents don't require shovels and the darkness of Camden Hills forest. With contradictory confession and consistent scientific evidence chain, the Mark Ellison case was officially handed to Maine State Prosecution for second-degree murder charges. What began as a mysterious 2007 disappearance had become Knox County's largest criminal case in nearly 2 decades. The trial in State of Maine v. Ellison officially opened on the morning of December 7, 2020, at the Bangor Federal District Court, presided over by Judge Harriet Cole. The case drew special media attention in Maine, not only for its 13-year duration, but also as one of the state's first using plant DNA analysis as key evidence. The courtroom was packed. Local press representatives, University of Maine law students, and a few Rockport residents who knew victim Anna Liang. In the front row, Anna's parents sat silently, faces etched with hardship, eyes following every prosecution move. The prosecution was led by attorney William Yates, with assistants Sandra Kim and Michael Hartley. Defense was represented by attorney Arthur Layton for Mark Ellison, who wore a gray shirt, visibly thinner after 2 months in detention. The courtroom atmosphere was heavy, cold, partly due to December Bangor weather, partly because the case carried the unresolved past of a small community. In the opening statement, Prosecutor Yates spoke firmly to the 12-person jury. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just a case of a missing wife. This is the story of a man who killed his wife, buried her in the forest, then lived 13 years as if nothing happened. Today we bring before the court scientific evidence, statements, and technical data to prove Mark Ellison took Anna Liang's life. Yates presented 3 main evidence pillars: plant DNA, mobile phone data, and audio recording of violence. First, the prosecution called Dr. Elaine Porter, plant biologist from the Maine State Lab, who directly analyzed 2007 mud samples from Mark's boots. She described DNA extraction from pollen and decayed leaves, compared to 2020 scene samples. Enlarged images appeared on the courtroom screen, 2 DNA bands matching perfectly. No random possibility, Dr. Porter affirmed. Mud on the defendant's boots came from the exact area where the body was found. The prosecution continued with phone data. Technician James Lowell from ATAN provided positioning diagrams showing Mark's device connected to a tower near Camden Hills State Park between 4 o'clock, 5 a.m. on March 12, 2007. The map displayed the route from the Rockport home to coordinates matching the body site. This is not speculative data. Lowell said. But automatic, untamperable data. Finally, the most critical part, the FBI restored recording of Mark and Anna's argument. When Anna's voice played in the courtroom, many shuddered. Her voice was weak but clear in panic, then strong impact sounds rang out, followed by prolonged silence. Prosecutor Yates paused a few seconds, then said slowly, "This moment of silence, ladies and gentlemen, is when Anna Liang's life ended." Next, the prosecution displayed forensic photos, 4 fractured ribs, severe skull trauma, consistent with direct strong strikes rather than an accident. Dr. Miriam Coates, Bangor forensic expert, confirmed this injury requires impact force equivalent to a strong blow or intentional collision. The prosecution presentation ended after 3 days, leaving a strong impression. Defense attorney Arthur Layton began rebuttal calmly. "No one denies Anna Liang died in painful circumstances, but the law does not punish someone for fear or mistake. Mark Ellison is not a premeditated killer. He is a broken man who erred in panic." The defense built arguments around 2 points: lack of motive and no proof of intent. Attorney Layton emphasized Mark and Anna had no financial issues, no life insurance or property disputes. No weapon was found. He called the death a tragic accident and consequence of marital anger. Layton also criticized prosecution use of personal recording, claiming it does not show the full picture. However, in cross-examination, the prosecution countered by presenting Mark's own interrogation statement, where he admitted burying the body to make it all disappear. Yates said, "An innocent person does not bury his wife in the forest. An accident does not require a shovel and darkness. That is the behavior of someone who knows exactly what he did." The trial lasted nearly 2 weeks. Over 10 witnesses were called, including forensic specialists, investigators, Anna's colleagues, and old friends of the couple. Some testimonies recalled prolonged marital discord. Anna had confided that she felt controlled, isolated, and afraid of Mark when he was angry. On December 20th, both sides concluded arguments. Judge Cole read instructions to the jury, emphasizing that intent must be considered indirectly, violent acts leading to death without premeditation. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned to the courtroom. Everyone held their breath. The foreperson asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The representative stood, voice calm. "Yes, Your Honor, we find the defendant Mark Ellison guilty of second-degree murder." A gasp echoed from the back row. Anna's mother covered her face, tears falling onto her hands. Mark sat still, eyes forward, no reaction. Attorney Layton placed a hand on his client's shoulder, head bowed. Judge Cole thanked the jury, then announced sentencing for the next day. On the morning of December 21, 2020, the Bangor courthouse was packed. Prosecutor Yates requested a 30-year prison sentence, stressing cruel acts and concealment of guilt for over a decade. Attorney Layton sought leniency, proposing 15 years, citing cooperative confession and no prior record. After consideration, Judge Harriet Cole read the sentence. The court finds the defendant took another's life in a controlled situation, with action awareness and attempts to conceal consequences. However, no evidence of premeditation exists. The court sentences Mark Ellison for second-degree murder to 28 years imprisonment, with no parole in the first 20 years. As police escorted Mark from the courtroom, he turned once, glancing briefly at Anna's parents, whom he once called family. No one spoke. Outside the court, snow fell heavily, covering the walkway white. Lieutenant Albright stepped out of the courtroom, standing silently for a long time on the stone steps. In his notebook, only one line, State of Maine, Case ME071294, file closed. Justice comes slow, but it comes. The trial ended, and the 28-year sentence closed a case that haunted Rockport for 13 years. But in the silence of that winter afternoon, everyone understood. Justice does not erase loss. It only returns the final voice to one who no longer has a chance to speak. 3 days after sentencing, Case file State of Maine vs. Mark Ellison. E071294 was officially transferred to closed status in the state judicial system. On December 24, 2020, the Maine State Police released a 72-page summary report titled Application of Plant DNA Technology in Cold Case Investigations. Rockport 2007 Case Study. The report became the first in state forensic history to document the use of plant DNA, specifically eastern white pine pollen, as legally valid scene location evidence in court. The release event took place at the Augusta Command Center, chaired by Lieutenant Joseph Albright, with representatives from the FBI, State Lab, and University of Maine present. In his opening remarks, Albright spoke slowly, voice hoarse after months of tension. This case taught us the value of persistence and scientific progress. Every dust particle, every leaf, every signal can witness truth, if we know how to listen. The summary report divided the investigation into 3 phases: 2007, 2008, 2009, 2019, and 2020. In the conclusion, the agency highlighted 3 breakthroughs. 1. Plant DNA technology, enabling geographic origin tracing of mud samples, identifying the scene when the body was moved. 2. Long-term mobile positioning analysis, proving recovery of old carrier data after over a decade. 3. Forensic audio restoration, expanding circumstantial evidence via digital signal. These advancements, per Albright, turned a seemingly unsolvable disappearance into a model case in Maine judicial history. The state chief prosecutor's office issued a parallel statement affirming the case marked a turning point in integrating biotechnology, telecommunications data, and behavioral analysis in criminal investigations. Attorney William Yates, lead prosecutor, wrote in his note, "Science does not just prove guilt, it restores the victim's voice when humans fall silent." Maine media unanimously covered the case under headlines, "Justice After 13 Years." Major outlets like Portland Press Herald and Bangor Daily News published detailed investigative analyses, calling it one of the most significant cold cases in the Northeast U.S. Local TV channels replayed trial footage and scientific report excerpts, where experts described extracting DNA from decayed leaf fragments under boot soles. Tiny evidence that changed the outcome. In Rockport, where the case began, a quiet atmosphere enveloped the Christmas holiday. The coastal town, accustomed to winter calm, was suddenly referenced as a symbol of determination. Many residents, living there since 2007, still clearly remembered the disappearance's early days: police cars along Main Street, snow searches, then 13 years of silence. When the verdict came, they did not celebrate, only quietly placed flowers before Town Hall, where a small plaque read, "In memory of Anna Liang." Local radio station WROX aired a special program titled Camden Hills, The Forest That Spoke, recounting the investigation through forensic specialists' words. Reporter Emily Rowe said, "When the case started, plant DNA was a foreign concept, but it helped Maine rewrite its investigative history." At the University of Maine, the biology department launched a new course titled Forensic Botany, Plant DNA, and Criminal Justice, using the Rockport case as the first textbook. Students viewed actual samples, learning to analyze plant genetic structures for geographic tracing, a method once used only in ecology research. For the state investigative force, the case became a model for long-term evidence management. In Bangor storage, evidence box coded Me071294 was placed separately on a glass shelf, with the note, "Case reopened 2019, resolved 2020. New investigators entering the field were introduced to it as the first lesson on preserving traces, no matter how small. Lieutenant Albright, in his final meeting before retirement, sent an internal letter to the entire unit. "Not every case has an ending, but every case leaves something for the next person." Rockport 2007 reminds us that justice is not about speed, but faith that truth remains, waiting to be found. In January 2021, the Maine State Police awarded special merit medals to the forensic team and FBI audio engineers who decoded the final audio segment. The ceremony was simple, unceremonious, with only old evidence boxes on the table as reminders of the journey. For the Rockport community, the case closed not just with a 28-year sentence, but with a shift in how justice is perceived. After 13 years, truth was no longer distant, recorded in every mud sample, every audio segment, every data line thought lost. When the summary report was officially archived in the State Judicial Repository, Lieutenant Albright signed his final line with slightly trembling but firm handwriting. Case ME071294, closed. Lessons preserved, justice served. The Anna Liang case, once Maine's long-lasting obsession, now became a milestone in U.S. forensic investigation history, marking the first time a Camden Hills forest tree species helped bring truth back to light. The Anna Liang case story is not just the tragedy of a woman robbed of life, but a mirror reflecting how modern American society views justice, technology, and persistence in seeking truth. 13 years, a case seemingly forgotten, was finally solved thanks to forensic science advancements, especially plant DNA analysis from mud on boots forgotten in storage. From that small detail, we see that in life, nothing is entirely useless or too late if people maintain faith and care. In today's America, where data and technology dominate every field, this lesson is ever more practical. Every action, no matter how small, leaves a trace, and personal responsibility cannot be evaded. Moreover, the Maine investigative agency's relentless pursuit, persistently preserving evidence for over a decade, reflects a deep American cultural value, civic duty, and faith in the legal system. In modern society, where news comes and goes quickly, this story reminds that justice is not measured by speed, but by accuracy and endurance. Finally, the Anna Liang case also underscores the importance of science serving humanity. From DNA analysts, FBI audio engineers, to local police, each contributed to a long chain of effort. Much like how American society needs multidisciplinary coordination to solve today's complex issues, from criminal justice to climate change or data privacy. Above all, this story reminds us that in a civilization valuing reason, truth always has its own voice, as long as we are patient enough to listen. Thank you for following to the end of the journey to restore justice for Anna Liang, a case that showed the power of science and unextinguished faith. If you want to continue exploring true stories of justice and truths revealed after years of obscurity, please subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video.